Mean Streets. Mean Streets by Martin Scorsese. It's his first feature film that was, his first feature film that he was really able to make his own out of and really put his artistic impressions on. And I think that that's what shines most about it. The plot is very simple, and I don't want to say it doesn't necessarily feel predictable, because while you're watching it you're just so engrossed by it that you don't really feel like your mind isn't in a place where you're thinking, ooh, what's this character gonna do, ooh, what's the ending gonna be. While you're watching it you're constantly thinking, wow, that was really pretty, or I really like the way that was shot, or I just really, watching this, I feel like I'm a mafiosa in New York. What I find most striking at first about the visual style is that I find a lot of not a lot of filmmakers nowadays, but this is more a universal thing, that when a film, I feel, is made without too much consideration of the artistic meaning behind the images, or just the emotion that cinema as a whole is trying to express, right? When it's not about that, and it's more concerned with, okay, let's just tell the story, let's get this moving along. The film tends to be a sequence of each scene starts with a wide or an establishing shot, and then you have a series of medium shots and occasional close-ups where you're constantly focused on the characters and what they're doing, right? And you're never really seeing the larger scene, or really seeing the large emotions that are conveyed. There are many scenes in Mean Streets where the framing of the shots focuses less on the characters specifically, and more about just telling the larger idea, the larger concept and feeling that Scorsese is trying to show. A good example of this is in one of the bar scenes where a lot of gangsters are having a discussion, and while the discussion is going on, you see a young woman lean in and light her cigarette with a candle. And this is nothing to do with the specific conversation as it's happening, but it really shows the sort of attitude that I think Scorsese was trying to capture, and it really makes you feel not like you're sitting back as a separated viewer watching everything happen. It heightens your sense of viewing to a sense of immersion, where you're really feeling like you're at this party and you're lounging with these gangsters. And one thing which I really liked about that is really clearly shown in a fight scene, which is set in a billiards or a pool area. I feel when fight scenes are really focused around just constant mediums, I feel that shows how little effort is being put into them. Because with this, I'll just show you, with this fight scene, it's a lot of wides, right? And the sort of camera dangerously follows along as sort of new events happen and things, and the fight develops. And now, first of all, it's setting it in a pool room is just so cool, right? Because you can see the whole fight, and you can watch it sprawl out as it takes shape throughout the various obstacles, but the obstacles don't necessarily distract you from seeing everything. And also there are some really fun interactions that they do on them, like when they try and reach over and grab each other, or when they get thrown and they're rolling around on them. What I think was really good about the fight scene and how it was open and sort of was more free flowing than like a constant sequence of mixed medium shots is, first of all, you really get a clear idea where everything is in relation to each other, and you can like really properly process the whole space and see everything sort of come together. Because when it's a bunch of medium close-ups, it's what's the point? You know, what am I really seeing more? But by going closer and trying to see more of the characters, you're really just seeing less, because you can't make sense of where everything is and how people are interacting. The film was mostly about people trying to fit into society, man. Essentially, every character in the film is working, or what's most important about what's being told about them is how successful they are in their mafioso community, and what are they doing to prove themselves, and how are they keeping their head above water. A lot, and here's the thing I like, a lot of the conversation in the film is about business. Loads of businesses and decisions and ideas are discussed and mentioned, which aren't really shown, but it just sort of it just goes to show how what's constantly on these characters' minds is, what can I trade, what's in market, what can I do, how can I keep my head above water so that I'm making gains here, so that I can continue in this capitalistic society. Johnny doesn't really seem to get it, and so Charlie is mixed here, because he's trying to help Johnny, because to him it seems like the right thing to do, to help someone who's struggling to get their foot up, maybe at the cost of yourself. And throughout the film is Charlie as a fairly established man, who sort of values his position in this society and how everyone treats him, trying to take care of his cousin Johnny, who's a bit of a fuck up, and sort of is constantly being given chances to redeem himself, and Charlie's always trying to be sympathetic and trying to just help him thrive, where everyone else thinks Johnny should just be, left aside and ignored because he's screwed up enough times that he's not worth trying anymore. I think one of the most notable lines in the film is when his uncle tells Charlie, honorable men go with honorable men, something like that. So in the opening scene, we understand this main relationship, which is the events throughout most of the film, right away, through lighting and coloring mostly, and also a bit of location, because at the start all of the principal characters hang out in a bar, one of the main bars throughout the film, and this bar is covered in a red light, so it's put to be a place where, which is seedy, where people go when they're lustful, a bad place that sort of men of low character go to. In the bar, Charlie doesn't tell Johnny to pull his head out of his ass. He goes out and he tells him in a brightly lit, somewhat cleaner looking space. And you pick up on this sort of that with the first scene, you see Charlie directing Johnny out of this sleazy place into a cleaner place and telling him, hey, get his business together. I think that was a really neat way to start the film and to show how the characters' relations are going to be throughout the whole thing. The plot sort of sets up a few things that don't really go places, but I'm fine with that. I think it's cool, and it's sort of, if you're a bit of a jerk about it, you could say the plot sort of messes up and is weakened because it sets up a fair few things that are sort of just forgotten about. At one point, the character shows that he's illegally holding on to lions, right? Which is like, ooh, that's cool. Like, you think you're going to see more of it, and it's like 30 minutes, 20 minutes in, I think. and you think, oh wow, I didn't see that coming, and you're wondering how that's going to develop, and it doesn't develop, and there are a fair few things like that. But I like that. I like that it sort of casually shows things which are nice and, well, not nice, but immersive and capture you, and doesn't feel the need to constantly intertwine everything together, because it feels more like how I imagine mafiosos would live, where things happen, not everything goes through, life's unexpected. Now, I will say, even though the plot was pretty simple and had a you had a pretty good idea where things were gonna go, alongside you, what I generally found, that because it was just so beautiful and immersive, that wasn't something that took away from the film. Another thing is that the characters, while the plot on which they were naturally heading towards was simple, the characters themselves felt complex, and you couldn't necessarily, or I didn't necessarily feel you could really specifically tell how they were going to act and how they were going to respond, which I think is a huge credit to the film, because it's so easy to make these painful simplifications when you're making a film. Like, you have the idea, you write a film and it's like, oh, okay, this character's the bad guy, this character's the good guy, this character's the annoying comic relief that you wish didn't exist, or maybe you did wish was the only character. It's so easy to make it that those characters sort of, you think and you write the characters based on what they are necessitated to do in the plot, that you sort of lose the sight of, you're supposed to try and make them seem like they're actual people, and you're supposed to try and make them complex. If you're trying to make something that's, as Scorsese would call, real cinema, I feel you should aim to have characters in films act like people and not like characters in films. So in conclusion, I thought Mean Streets was excellent. I thought it was beautifully told. It's really it's I'm gonna say, it's Scorsese says it, that it's Scorsese's thing, it's not my thing, but it's real cinema. It tells the story through all of the functions and means of the medium, and it doesn't hesitate to hold back on the more robotic or mechanical sides of storytelling to embrace something more beautiful and more immersive and to the point. And I think that throughout the whole piece, it worked to aestheticize and to show the charms of this rugged, capitalistic, individualist community, while also showing the negatives, right? And I think that was the main theme, and that was what's most beautiful about it.
So what do you want to do? I wanna go to the park, just standing on the bench. Cause that's all I ever really do. Yeah, I'm just kinda shy.